Welcome to Druya. The Druya is located right at the border with Latvia. So on one bank this is Druya, and on another one that you could see is Druya, which is on the Latvian side. And the river divides two countries. The Jews have settled in Druya in the 16th century, but the majority of the community settled in Druya in the beginning of the 18th century, and just 100 years ago the Jewish population of Druya was 3,000 out of the 4,500 of the general population. So it's around 80% was Jewish. There is no Jewish community in Druya, as well as in many former shtetls in Belarus, and Jews no longer live here. But somehow in Druya you feel this shtetl spirit, and everything tells you that the Jews have developed the area, that the Jews have lived here. See, there's two buildings, very interesting ones, very Jewish type of the buildings, right in the central square. You can see that there is an upper floor and there is a ground floor. Ground floor used to be devoted to the shop or any other sort of trading business, and upstairs Jews lived, and that's how the business was done here. And in Druya, of course, there were famous wealthy Jews that were supporting the town, supporting the community. Behind me you can see the path to the bridge that used to be in Druya, from which you could see an amazing building of the stone synagogue, which was built back in 1700s. And interestingly enough, the money for this synagogue was given to the community from Prince Sapega. Prince Sapega lived in Novogródek at that time. And you would ask, what does Novogródek have to do with Druya? Prince Sapega was a well-educated man, and he decided to learn about Jewish traditions, Jewish history, to learn Jewish language. And for that reason, in Novogródek he went to a rabbi, and he has asked rabbi to help him. But rabbi have noticed that Prince Sapega was very sad, and he asked him what was the matter. And Prince Sapega told him a story that him and his wife Jadwiga had 4 children, and all of the 4 children have died in their very early young age. And the rabbi said, you have to go to Druya, to Rabbi Michael, and he will help you. So Prince Sapega came to Druya, he went straight to Rabbi Michael, to the wooden synagogue, and in a year after the meeting and conversation with Rabbi Michael, they had a son. Prince Sapega was so happy, he came back to Druya, he had a festival here, he ordered all of the Jewish community to be exempt from taxes, and he has given the money to build an amazing stone synagogue, which was built in 1766. In 40 years from that time, Aron Kodesh has appeared in this beautiful synagogue. Everybody was happy, but unfortunately, during the war, the synagogue was damaged and synagogue was destroyed. And now nothing left of this amazing building. We only have memories, we only can imagine how great the synagogue, with an amazing story that of this synagogue in Druya. It's so unfortunate that this amazing building with such a rich story hasn't survived till today. This is the only remainings of it. But there's one building that has survived, which we will see. There were another 6 praying houses, as they would call it, the Jews used during the times of the Jewish community, and we will see one that has survived. Besides the great stone synagogue in Druya, there were 6 praying houses, both brick and wooden, and none of the buildings have survived except this one. This synagogue still stands, and you can see the building. It's closed now, it's not used for anything, but right after the war it was used for sauna. I guess the government decided where people were cleaning their souls, they could clean their bodies. On the 15th of June 1942, the Jewish community of Druya has stopped its existence. During the years since Nazi-occupied Druya, there was death, torture, robbery, pogroms. The Jews were made to stay in a small area and to wear the identification yellow marks to be identified as the Jews. Locals said after the war, after the Holocaust, that the Jewish area and Jewish houses were robbed 3 times during 10 months. And Jews themselves often said, they're going to kill us soon because there is nothing else to take from us. And indeed, during the 11th and 12th of June 1942, the execution command came, and there was an action, as the Nazis called it, during which Jews of the ghetto were resisting. They were running away. They were setting the ghetto on fire. They even set a synagogue on fire to be able to have chaos and to be able to run away. But still, during those 2 days, 1,318 Jews were executed, and only 30 of them survived. The rest were taken to the ghetto in Glubokaya, where they found their fate and were killed later. Over 2,000 Jews of Druya were killed during the Holocaust. And this memorial reflects the memory of those Jews, where it says, "Remember, the place on which you are standing and the earth under your feet are sacred. More than 700 Jews from Druya and surroundings, innocent men, women, and children murdered by Nazis and their collaborators, are buried here. Their blood cries out to the heavens." We're now walking on a street called 1st of May Street. The name the street got, of course, after the Second World War, and as every probably street around the former shtetls that has a name, 1st of May Street, 9th of May Street, Victory Street. But this particular street is now named after a famous Jew who was born in Druya, Artur Livshyts. His last name comes from his grandfather's and father's names, who were rabbis here. But Artur got his degree in Volozhin Yeshiva, and he's well known and around the world, and called, his nickname is a king of Jewish jokes. But that nickname he's got only when he immigrated to Eretz Israel and when he wrote his first book of Jewish jokes. He's also well known for the books about the Zionist movement, about Jews moving to Palestine, and he had his business here as well. So he, in the beginning of his career, he was a businessman. He had a warehouse here, he was selling metal, he was doing lots of other business before he found himself be interested in the literature and be interested in writing books. After living in Druya, him and his wife went to Odessa and they had business there, and then he immigrated to Eretz Israel. So this is a very unique place in a very small shtetl called after the famous Jew who was born in this town. Here's a plaque you could see that tells us about Artur Livshyts. We are now at the ancient Jewish cemetery of Druya. Some people say that the cemetery is over 400 years old. It's located on a hill right at the entrance of the city, and it has over 200 gravestones. Very well kept cemetery, I have to say. It has been restored by the Holocaust survivors from Druya and supporters from around the world. This cemetery stopped its function in 1959. I mean, it was closed in 1959. I'm not sure there were any graves during the war, but it's very looked after. It's very well looked after. You could see the fence around the cemetery. You could see that the grass is cut. You can read lots of headstones here. You could see the headstones at this part of the cemetery different from the ones in the center, because the ones in the center are ancient headstones. These are more modern headstones dating back in 1950s, 1960s. As I mentioned, that's when the cemetery was closed by the government in 1959, and it was forbidden to do the burials here at the cemetery. But interestingly enough, the last burial, I would say unlawful burial, took place here in the end of 1980s, when the person who has survived Druya ghetto, Livshyts, who has lost his family and his past in the ghetto, decided to come back to his home shtetl and be buried here. And this very place in Druya, you understand that the Jewish life in Druya has died forever. Despite it 100 years ago, things were completely different.